adult, this loyalty to the old ways was an exception. In his 1959 novel Absolute Beginners, Colin MacInnes describes the divide between teenagers and those referred to as squares by the 18-year-old unnamed hero. "Every time I open a newspaper or pick up a paperback," he says with scorn in his voice, "I hear nothing but war, war, war. You pensioners certainly seem to love that old struggle." Wherever possible, post-war Britain was trying to catch up with the pacey, modern, convenient world we saw across the Atlantic. As the old industries of steel and shipping declined, and Victorian factories gave way to scientific advances, office blocks of shining glass and chrome were built in the rubble-filled spaces, left by bombs that had dropped 20 years earlier. Ownership of television sets, refrigerators and other labour-saving gadgets was on the rise. John Bloom, opportunist and direct mail marketer, cut out the middleman shopkeeper and sold washing machines bought cheaply in Belgium directly to newlyweds and housewives. By 1962, at the age of 31, Bloom had become a millionaire 4 times over. With a Rolls-Royce the colour of a black tulip, 2 yachts, a villa in the south of France, a flat in London's Park Lane, a swagger and a neat little goatee beard, his marriage to Anne was celebrated in the Savoy Hotel. 2 huge wedding cakes dominated the ceremony, one in the shape of a washing machine and the other a spin dryer. But in the inner cities of Britain and in the countryside alike, laundry was still being done by hand, and the contrast between the affluent and the struggling was as acute as it had been immediately after the war. In 1961, 15 million people still lacked a plumbed-in bathroom, with many washing in a tin bath in front of a coal fire. In 1963, 6 million Britons shared a lavatory with others in their street. 3 million people, or nearly 7% of the population, were estimated to be living in slums. In London, 155,000 households were confined to 1 room each. And yet, beneath the frozen surface, a process of incubation was taking place. Just as the spring bulbs were stirring under the earth, the ground was cracking imperceptibly beneath the ice, and society was preparing for the moment when a different landscape would emerge. This was a winter in which despair and hardship, both personal and political, contrasted with a burgeoning sense of liberation and opportunity. It was a winter in which the old structural pillars of class and entitlement, a world in which swings in public playgrounds were locked up on Sundays and a nation's sense of joyfulness felt wanting, were starting to fragment and crumble. Throughout the early winter months of 1962-3, rumours about a government minister said to have betrayed state secrets through his relationship with a 20-year-old model swirled and eddied. Like snowflakes, they sometimes melted in the air as they fell, but sometimes they settled on the hard ground of credibility, attaching themselves to a new generation disillusioned by privileged self-protection and hungry for change. As the momentum of this scandal grew, one unchallenged rule for the elite and another for the bulk of the population began to feel increasingly wrong. This was a winter in which a fertile silence gave birth to a summer alive with sexuality and song. Old institutions and old viewpoints no longer made sense. What had been correct, the acceptable norm around clothes and accents and sex and class, were being upturned. By the end of 10 astonishing weeks, the circumstances of the rich, the immigrant, the homosexual, the musician, the politician, the woman, and above all, the young, had been spotlit and shaken up. Eager to seize their moment, the new generation was bent on dismantling archaic prejudices, injustices, hypocrisy and restrictions, and on creating a world of inclusivity and opportunity. As Ian McEwan wrote in On Chesil Beach, his 2007 novel set in the early 1960s, being young was no longer a social encumbrance.